I'm Jennifer. I, as Eric said, was one of SkillCat's first students when it first came out as a startup. I was, to be very, very brief about a very long story, I was looking for vocational online courses that were free for my homeschool students. I have a homeschool pod of 10 kids that I teach every year. That's just like regular public school, but privatized. So I do that for free. And so because it was free, I needed the cheapest possible vocational classes, and I found SkillCat. So I was like, oh, what's this? And ended up, boom, getting my EPA license, going through the whole thing, getting my trade school certificate, ended up going to MIT after that for mechanical engineering. But here I am. I own an HVAC business in Maine, and I am the live trainer for SkillCat. And I also own HVACX Coalition, which is merged with SkillCat App. So a lot of you here are here from HVACX, and you also know that you're also from SkillCat. So yeah. And all of you who don't know who I am, hi, it's awesome to meet you. And we're going to get right into it. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to do kind of give a little. So what I'm going to do is open this. I promise you I won't bore you like this presentation. I'm just going to quickly go through it so you guys can understand what the refrigeration cycle is. And I am looking at all of you right now, and you don't have to unmute, but just a show of hands, how many of you took the refrigeration theory course from SkillCat before this? Just give me a little hand. Okay, a few of you. Awesome, awesome. Okay, and those of you who didn't, it's not like you're going to be completely left behind. There may be things that you'll learn a little bit faster because you didn't take the course, so you'll have to learn them now, but that's okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Eric, can you just confirm that you see it when it's shared?
Yep.
Okay. That should work.
Cool. Yeah, I can see it.
You see it, Eric?
My end. Yep.
Those of you who are on phones might want to get a little you haven't before if you're on SkillCat. Oh, that's why I love SkillCat, obviously. All right, so refrigeration theory, live training from SkillCat by Jennifer Manzo. That's me. So what is the refrigeration cycle? True or false? And you guys can unmute when I ask a question, and just just everybody just yell it all out to me at once, okay? True or false? We cool a room by blowing in cold air.
False.
False.
Some say false, some say true.
False.
False. It is false.
False.
The refrigeration cycle allows us to use refrigerants with low boiling points to trap heat from the space and transfer it outside. So we are not, in fact, blowing cold air into a room. We're actually removing the hot air. So we're using the low boiling point refrigerants, and we are using those super, super cold refrigerants to grab all of the heat that's in the space and then throw it outside via the condenser fan and condenser coil. So that is actually what we're doing. We do not provide actual air conditioning. To condition the air means to remove the heat. So these are the four major components. This is just this little presentation is just an overview. You guys are missing a bunch of stuff in between these two slides. But just to show you, I want to show you what they look like. I do have a bunch of components here, but because I'm not going to like traipse in 100-pound, condenser coil, I wanted you guys to be able to see what they look like. So the compressor, the condenser, the metering device, and the evaporator. So here is your evaporator coil. This is your little Copeland compressor here. This is the condenser coil, the outdoor coil that rejects the heat. And then this is the metering device, which we will find out what that does. Can anybody tell me, and if you know, unmute yourself, hit me with it. Extra points if you can tell me the fifth major component according to an HVAC tech. I'll give you a hint. How do you control it? How do you control all these parts?
Thermostat, control board.
Thermostat. Yes. Nice job. Definitely a thermostat, because all of this is all you need to make cold, as we say it. We call it making cold. It's not actually making cold, like I said, it's removing heat. But to make cold, all you need is these 4 components. However, you can't tell it to make cold unless you have a thermostat. So that's always a little tidbit that us techs like to tell our apprentices. We like to joke around that you're wrong about the 4 major components because there are 5. Okay, so these are the questions that we're going to answer at the end of this course. In what 2 components does refrigerant change phase? What does the compressor change about the refrigerant? And what is the job of the metering device? So now I'm going to stop sharing. All right. And does anybody have any questions about that, about what we just went over?
No, Jennifer, but I would like to include that it's a fascinating factoid that the space that we are in, even our living rooms and our bedrooms, are air ducts. They're actually they're ducts.
Yes. Yes, they are. So an air duct, what Jason is talking about, is an air duct is just a space that holds air. It's a space that holds and channels air. So if you're in a room and you're blowing a fan, you're actually blowing CFM through ductwork. The ductwork is just your house. So that is an interesting factoid, actually, Jason. And a lot of advanced techs will try to mess with you on that and tell you don't know what ductwork is until you then give them Jason's answer for that question. Just one of the many ways we like to mess with our apprentices. Okay, so I'm going to not bore you guys with a bunch of paperwork here. So I have been given these awesome teaching materials, and I'll kind of show you guys just what this looks like. So these were given to me from AC Service Tech, Mr. Craig Migliaccio. A lot of you have watched his videos on YouTube, and my training center is lined with his materials. He's one of our HVAC sponsors, and he was actually just on my podcast the other night, which was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Okay. All right.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
So here is the basic refrigeration cycle. This is baby hand. This was given to me at the HVAC School Symposium by Ty Brannaman, and it actually gives me a superpower. And that superpower is
I
teaching
love
a whole bunch
Ty.
of food. Isn't Ty amazing? He's the
He
best.
is such a
He
beautiful
is-
personality.
Yes, he actually sent me a letter today, which was super sweet of him. But yeah, so he's at the HVAC Excellence place right now where our CEO Richir is as well. So Ty, I was going to ask Ty to join me for this one, but because this is his forte, he likes to cut compressors in half and do all that fun stuff, but we'll get him on here on a different one. So this is the refrigeration cycle, the basic refrigeration cycle. I'm going to try to move you guys a little bit closer here. Okay, that's a little better. All right, so these are our components, right, that we talked about. This is the compressor. This is the condenser coil. This right here is the metering device. And then here is the evaporator coil. So all of those components that we just talked about, plus there are a few more on this one. On this one, we have the condenser coil and the evaporator coil. I mean, the condenser fan and the evaporator fan as well. So the fans, though they are components, they are not major components because all they do is move the air across the surface area. So what's happening in these pipes, right? So what's happening is we will start at the compressor. It does not matter where you start in this because, again, it's a cycle. It's just going around and around. So we'll start at the compressor. So our refrigerant in the compressor has some oil in there too. It's not just refrigerant. Don't worry, guys. I'm not trying to tell you that. So it is leaving the compressor as a high pressure, high temperature vapor, okay? And then as you can see, halfway through this condenser coil, it is turning to a high temperature, low pressure liquid or high pressure liquid. So the compressor is boosting the pressure, not necessarily the temperature, but our temperature and pressure are pretty much the same thing when it comes to refrigeration, you guys?
Yes.
When you raise one, you raise both, period. When you drop one, you drop both. You can't help it. It's in and out are the same. So as you raise the pressure, you are raising the temperature. So you've got this high temperature, high pressure vapor coming out and forming a high temperature, low pressure liquid. And then you come down here going through the metering device. So you guys are used to seeing, those of you who are actually in this job, you will see some like this. This is called a fixed orifice metering device. And this is on a lot of the older systems and a lot of the smaller systems. But you will also see this. This is what you're used to seeing. This is a TXV, a thermostatic expansion valve. And this is what you guys saw in that refrigeration theory course. So this metering device has an inlet and an outlet here and here. It has a cap tube, a capillary tube. It has a sensing bulb, and then it has a valve, and it has a power head. So the power head controls the valve. The valve moves up and down to let refrigerant out or to not, to either give you more refrigerant or give you less refrigerant. And all of that is based on this sensing bulb. So the sensing bulb goes at the evaporator, and depending on what the evaporator temperature is, the sensing bulb bubbles. It boils, right? Because these refrigerants boil at such a low temperature. So 134A, I believe, was like -15 almost it boils at. So if your indoor air is 70 degrees and your refrigerant's boiling at -15, you're going to have saturated boil, saturated vapor. That's going to make it easy for the refrigerant to remove the load from your house because it's going to grab so much heat as it goes through these pipes. So here's your metering device. This metering device's job is to lower the pressure. So that part, that component is the exact opposite of this component that we just were talking about, of this compressor. This compressor's job is to raise the pressure, metering devices to lower the pressure. So what it's going to be is a hot liquid coming here, a hot high pressure liquid coming through here. When it gets to the metering device is going to meter it. It's going to squirt out just as much as the rest of the system needs in refrigerant. And then it's going to come back out as a saturated liquid that's low temperature, low pressure on the other side. So when we talk about a high side and a low side, right? Anything that is hot, anything that is high pressure is your high side. Anything that is low pressure, that is cold, is your low side. So when we look at this, we see some different colorations, okay? And the reason for that is what you learned in the refrigeration theory course on SkillCat, phase change, right? We talk about water changing phase all the time. That's a huge part of our lives. Refrigerant also changes phase. So in the compressor can only take what? Does anybody know what phase it should be in when it both enters and leaves the compressor? Temperature negated, but should it be a vapor
Low
or
pressure,
a liquid?
low pressure vapor to high pressure vapor.
Right. Either way, vapor, right? It cannot take
Yeah.
liquid. If you've got liquid flooding back to your evaporator, you've got, a flooded coil, or you've got a restriction. Or you've got an overcharge. If you have too much liquid refrigerant, it will back up into the compressor and break it. That happens a lot. So you have a low temperature, low pressure vapor coming in, and you have a high pressure, high temperature vapor going out. And then once it's halfway about, and you can put a thermal imager on the coil as it's working, and you can actually see the phase change. You can see the different colors of the different temperatures. So as it turns into a liquid, you've got it coming through the coil, back through the filter dryer. If you have one, mini splits, you won't see one of those. There's no need for them on mini splits. And then back to the metering device to, again, drop the pressure. You have a little bit of vapor in here. I know you guys can't probably see that, but when it enters the metering device, there's absolutely no vapor. It's 100% liquid. But when you leave the metering device, you are liquid, but you've got a little bit of leftover vapor just from the sheer change that is happening in such a small space. So you've got this big old unit. This TXV is actually off of a 10-ton lobster tank chiller, which is pretty insane, but it's the only one I had. So this tiny little thing, if you picture that this is the inlet, this is the outlet, right? You've got such a small space here to change the entire phase of this refrigerant. So because it happens in such a small space and there's just not a lot of like leveling it can do, you get a little bit of vapor out the other side. If you're getting more vapor than you need, then your load probably isn't high enough. And if you're getting less vapor than you need, you probably got a restriction in your TXV, which happens all the time. Because inside here, there's a valve that goes up and down to let the refrigerant out. And sometimes it gets, crusty with sediment, or there's all kinds of things can happen. This power head can stop working, and then you've got to replace the TXV. And there's a joke in HVAC that it's always the TXV, no matter what. Anyway, that's not true at all. Now,
that's a rarity, right?
Yes, it's actually a rarity. It just gets misdiagnosed daily. And I own that tech support line. You guys all have the number for that. And you would not believe the amount of calls I get of people misdiagnosing a TXV, ripping it apart, recovering all the refrigerant, changing the TXV, putting it all back, and then it still doesn't work. You would not believe how often that happens. So to monitor it, you will not see this on a lot of residential systems, but I know a lot of you are going into commercial. Can anybody tell me what this is?
Sight glass.
Sight glass.
A sight glass, yeah. So this is a sight glass. This on some systems, mainly commercial systems, I have seen a few residential systems that have them, but it's mostly because the installer didn't understand not to put one on a residential system. So you will get what's called flash gas on a residential system, and you'll see it in the sight glass, and it will just confuse you and make you think that your system is low, even though it isn't. But on commercial systems, I actually have a video if you guys want to check it out on the SkillCat TikTok. It was from probably last year or so, but I actually have a video of the sight glass clearing. So what you'll see as you're charging the system in that glass is you'll see the liquid refrigerant. And when you see it, it will be bubbling. And I mean like boiling faster than anything you've ever seen. And then the second you add the correct charge of refrigerant, it will clear. And I mean immediately like that. It just goes whoosh and clears. And once your sight is figured correct. Can we always say that? No. But if it's put on the correct system, you can actually tell that your charge is correct by looking at this. And that's a super game. So, okay. Does anybody have any questions so far? Questions?
Not at all.
No? That's good. My job. Okay, so I want to go back to the compressor. So I'm going to show you guys a compressor, okay? So I'm actually going to turn this. So here's my table of Wonderland things. And this table is super fun to teach with. Okay, so here we have a compressor. This is a little baby compressor. This, I believe, came out of a walk-in, but it weighs a ton. This weighs about 110 pounds, roughly. But yeah, so this is a compressor. This goes in the middle of your unit. It has a few little copper nubs on it still from where I cut it off when it was replaced. But the important thing is the way that I diagnosed this compressor. This compressor was bad. And the way that I diagnosed it is because something was on the outside of it. It was not refrigerant, but it was something else that told me that it had blown, that it was leaking. Anybody know what that could have been?
Oil.
Oil
Yes, oil.
migration.
I walked out to the region and it was the smelliest little region I had ever smelled. And I'm like, I know that smell. That is burnt compressor oil. So what happens is it blows out, compressor gets flooded back to the compressor, back to the scrolls, and they acidize. They get acid inside of the compressor. That acid eats away from the scrolls and they jam up. And then as they keep trying to go, overamping, they break eventually. So that was how I found this particular compressor. That's why I wanted to show it to you guys. And then this is how I fixed it. I replaced it, I pulled it out. I put some of this, not this one actually. This is 410A. This I did not put in it. I put in 134A, which is also pink, which is what I thought that I grabbed, but I didn't. So this is actually air conditioner refrigerant. Everybody has seen it, I'm sure. This is actually what they look like in real life. If you haven't seen one in real life, you've got your little, you got your little valve here, and then you've got your port. So you just hook your gauges to that. And then I also wanted to show you guys, those of you who haven't worked on it, well, does anybody here have gauges? Do you work on refrigerant? Do you have gauges? Anybody?
Yes.
Jason does.
Well, I got
Every day.
Ron Mexico says no.
Oh, yeah. And hey. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad Chris is here. There's a lot of my students here, guys, but there's also a few of my friends. So those who make fun of me, don't mind them. They're here for a reason, to keep me humble. So this is what you'll use. A lot of you will use, okay? Most of you probably aren't still in analogs. Some of you probably are. I actually have a pair of analogs, but they're not out here right now. So I'm gonna show you on these. This is a pair of Fieldpiece S-Mans. And what are these for? Somebody tell me what these are for.
Propping
know,
the door
they're not
open.
Alienware. What was that, Ron Mexico?
Propping the door open.
All right,
Yeah.
don't listen to Ron Mexico. Ron Mexico is not a good influence. These are for
Checking
air
your
Measuring
charge.
pressures.
and charging. Yes, exactly. You check all your pressures. You can check your vapor and liquid saturation, your superheat, your subcool. You can do tightness tests. You can check your delta T. Everything you need to know about your refrigerant will be on these. But wait, why
There's
are they
more-
telling us not to use these? Anybody?
Why are
Why
they
are
what
they
now?
telling?
Go ahead, one at a time.
Why are
Why
they
are they
what?
telling us what?
Okay, neither of you heard it. So they're telling us not to use them anymore. They're telling us that we have no need for a digital manifold whatsoever. The
Because
reason
they
for
have-
that. Go ahead, Jason. Yeah, tell them.
Because they have the new
Smart probes.
sensors now. They
The
have the new
probes.
tube sensors, the probes, exactly.
They work pretty good too.
These bad boys, they do work
I
pretty
have, I
good.
love them.
So
Yeah, they work great.
I was terrified of these.
Those are the
I don't know
best.
if you guys who are in the field. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know if those of you who are in the field, like, were scared of these when they came out, but I talked a whole lot of poop about them. Let me say that. I said, there's no way that those two little, pew-pews are going to check my whole charge in a 10-ton system. False, wrong, completely wrong.
Yeah, if
I
you have
ended up
you have
looking
the
these up for my
proper
first system.
if you have the proper tees for them, you can also charge with them as well.
Exactly. So I didn't at the beginning when I first got these. I did not have the proper tees. I didn't know. I was like, what are these for? Just checking my charge. Like, I can do a non-invasive system check, right? And that's what we're taught to do, is non-invasive system check. So what's the point
How
of checking the charge
sensitive
if
are
I'm not
they?
using my manifold? I was they're very sensitive. I will say that I have tested them against my S-mans. And where my S-mans, you would think, would give me a more positive charge. They would give me like a little bit more because my hoses are then giving me some leeway. They actually don't. Like, the S-mans, I will say, are just as accurate as these, which you would not expect with hoses. What I will say is I do not get any refrigerant out of the system with these. And with these hoses, I mean, look at this. Like, look at
Yeah,
that.
that's what makes them.
So you can either hook up with those.
That's what makes them great for just doing a PM analysis of your pressures and temperatures and stuff, because you don't lose that refrigerant.
Exactly. And if you don't know that it's a charge issue, is another thing. So
Right.
I will teach you guys going forward about non-invasive system check. I will preach it to you, and I will tell you every single way that you can check this system without gauging up to it, because I never ever want you to gauge up unless you absolutely have to. However,
Is this
when
a
there is
a
reason to
JB
gauge up-
promotion? Is this a
No,
JB
this is
promotion?
field piece, actually.
Field
Right.
piece.
No, these are my field piece, actually, and I actually don't even have permission. So look at me being a rebel. But yeah, so they do make, I'm actually glad you said that, Jason, because they do make every different type of manufacturer makes these. You can get Testo, you can get JB, you can get, I don't even know who else makes them. Yellow Jacket makes them now. There are tons out there. And I actually love the Yellow Jacket digital manifold. I have one of those too. I don't use it as much anymore, but I do love it.
The field.
But yeah, any type of probe. So you guys, I didn't even tell you what these do. Okay, so these would get hooked up in lieu of your gauges to your high and low sides, right? These are then going to transmit with this little blinky light. They're going to transmit back to your cell phone. Imagine that, right? Bluetooth to your cell phone. These are Bluetooth connected. So they will talk to your little cell phone. It will open your app. You will be on the JobLink app through FieldPiece or whatever app it is that is for the manufacturer that you are using. For FieldPiece, it's JobLink. So it will open it up, and you'll be able to read, just like on this manifold, all of the things you can see on this, you'll be able to see on your cell phone, which is, let me just say, it's a huge time saver. I will say this. There's not a whole lot of range, and a lot of companies, FieldPiece included, are coming out with range transmitters that are like have a wider range. You can boost your range. But at the same time, if you're used to using a manifold, you're used to standing right there by the system anyway. So it's like, why do you need that much range? But it is
How
awesome if
far
you're
do
like
you
parked
really
super
need to
close
get
and it's
away from
freezing
your
out.
probes?
Whatever, Ron Mexico, pipe down.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, so
You'll
I
stand
do
in the next
even-
district and check pressures.
Well, sometimes you're
You have to.
using the
You have to.
temperature for the return and the charge of the air as well to get those temperatures.
What about when it comes to pulling a vacuum?
Absolutely, right? So this charge kit doesn't just come with that either. So you're going to hook up to your system. You're going to also use the other things that come with it. And I'm pretty sure that every company has stuff like this that come with it. It's not just Field Piece. And in no way am I working for Field Piece right now. It's just what I have. Anyway, these are psychrometers. So these are magnetic and they will tell you your airflow. So you don't only want to your gauges, right? You also want to check your airflow. Can anybody tell me a fun little quip that includes 3 letters that I might be interested in right now about airflow and charge? I know you can, Ron Mexico.
ABC.
No?
Well,
ABC, airflow before
oh,
charge.
okay, I didn't
Yes.
hear.
Charge.
Yeah, so airflow before charge. This is not just a teaching thing. From experience, from a lot of experience as a technician, most of your problem is airflow. And the master filter change will tell you that a dirty filter can cause a lot of problems before you ever even look at the charge of the system. So a lot of techs are taught from the system, and when we're doing maintenance or we're doing a diagnosis or troubleshooting, we're to hook up our gauge and see what the pressures are doing. That is so incredibly wrong. I can't preach it enough. From now on, if you're one of the people that have been taught to do that, visually inspect first. Your senses are your number one diagnosis tool. And this is what I tell everybody that calls my tech support line as well. You are always, always, always going to inspect these units with the things you have on hand before you put tools to them. So smells, sounds, sight, and touch, right? There's no cold air coming out or there's no hot air coming out in heating season. And then you can see a, oil leak on your compressor or on a fitting or, wherever it might be, you can see an oil leak. There's so many things that you can see with your senses that will save you so much time if you're used to just walking up and gauging up to that system. Because a lot of the time the pressure won't tell you anything other than that your airflow is restricted. So if you've got a super high head pressure for no other look at that there's a blank of dog hair, you could just clean that condenser and then gauged up, right? Or maybe your problem would have been solved. You wouldn't have to gauge up. So this is what I'm always going to preach to you guys, that it's airflow before charge is the first thing, but also always non-invasive system check. What was your question for me?
So the question was in regards to those Bluetooth probes that you hook up. Can you pull it back with those somehow? You can use them with vacuum as well. I mean, I know they're cordless.
Technically,
do they hook on? Do they hook on to?
So technically, you can get the T's and you can pull through them, but I don't know. I haven't done it. They do have like a whole setup where you can get the micron gauge and you can pull it back through them. You can hook up your hoses to them, but I don't do any of that. So the way that I see it is if I'm so you shouldn't be pulling a vacuum through a manifold, first of all.
No.
What I do is instead I use just a T. I use a
Purge it
and
run.
then I hook my big blue hose to that and then directly to my vacuum.
I use the
Is that
Apion
Ron?
kit. Apion kit works really well as well.
Yeah.
Those Field Piece probes, they'll only
Yes.
measure inches of mercury. So like I got the MG44 and it has the micron gauge and Bluetooth as well.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't have one and I love it. I want to get one because I want to start doing it that way. But instead, I actually have a Yellow Jacket micron gauge that I use. So I got to get like up with the times and match all my stuff up. But I just really love Ritchie Yellow Jacket too. I don't know why. They're one of my OG favorite companies. Do we have any more questions on the refrigeration cycle? So it goes, so just to reiterate, and then you can ask questions as well. So just to reiterate, it goes into the compressor as a vapor, as a cold vapor. It comes out of the compressor as a hot vapor with lots of pressure, super heated, super pressurized. And then it goes through the condenser coil, and through the condenser coil, it changes phase to a liquid. That liquid is still really, really hot, and it's still high pressure. It's just a liquid now. So then when it comes out of the condenser coil, it gets metered, goes into the next part of the system, which is the evaporator coil. The evaporator coil does the same thing, opposite. It changes that liquid to a vapor, a low temperature, low pressure vapor. And then back up to the compressor where pressure is added again. It's turned to the hot side. It goes back through to the cold side. So when it's on that part of the system where it is inside, so your evaporator coil, it is actually grabbing heat out of your room, and it's pulling that heat through the outside. And then when it gets outside, the condenser fan is blowing it out into the outer world where it doesn't hurt anybody or make anybody sticky and nasty, right? So that is, in a nutshell, the refrigeration cycle. Does anybody have any questions on that? Sorry, guys, I'm looking through to see if any of you have questions, but there's so many of you here. Okay, so no questions on that. Does anybody have any questions on the tools? Either ones shown or ones you heard about? Nope. Okay. I don't want to get super into showing you guys how to check and like how to measure and charge, because that's for a whole nother class. But I will say this. You guys took the refrigeration theory course, right? In that, it's a lot about phase change. It's probably a lot that you already knew, other than boiling points and, condensing points. What I will say is, in that course, you won't hear them say bubble point or dew point. And those are other words for boiling point and condensing point, right? So if somebody asks you the dew point of your refrigerant, that might be really confusing. So I did want to give you guys that little tidbit. So your dew point is at whatever temperature it saturates into liquid. So I took this course earlier today, and I will say that it was a tough one to make a full course on, because it is so short and it's stuff that you learn. Basically, the process is learned in like 5th grade, right? Phase change. If you add pressure to a liquid, you can make a solid. Which will go on the filter. Does anybody know the answer to that question? That's actually a great question, Ron.
Could you just say
Anybody
it
know?
again? Can you say it one more? Can you say it again? Because you broke up there.
Yep. Sure. Which way does the arrow go on the filter?
The way the airflow is going towards the
Toward the supply.
Yes.
Towards the blower.
yeah,
Toward the
towards the supply blower unit.
Yes, it goes to
It never goes back towards the duct. Put it that way.
right. Yeah, you're not blowing it that way, right? You want it to go with airflow. So I actually have a filter here that I can show you. This is a pretty special filter. Chris is going to Ron Mexico is going to get very, very jealous when I show you guys this. So just don't let his jealousy wipe off on all of you. Okay. So hold on one sec.
The whoosh.
Don't you bring that piece of crap out here.
The whoosh. The swoosh.
Don't you do it.
Whoosh.
This is a whoosh. You guys, this company hired me they wanted me to check out their filter and only agree to influence for them if I liked it. So what I did was I installed it in my shop, and then I hooked up the IAQ monitor that comes with it. The filter monitors your IAQ. So your indoor air quality. So the filter is literally talking to an app on my phone, telling me that I'm brazing in my shop. It's telling me that I have these particulates that are dangerous for me and to open the window. And I'm like, mind your business. But then I thought about it and I'm like, wait, for it to tell me that, it probably is pretty severe, right? So then I hook it to a smart thermostat and it tells the thermostat to turn on when I'm doing things like that. And it filters the air. It tells my machine to turn on to filter my air because I'm doing crazy things in my warehouse. Insane,
So it's
right?
a smart filter?
It's a smart filter. Yes. And it's actually a startup, it's a Shark Tank startup. So they just don't have like a lot of, publicity at all. So I'm trying to help them out with that. But what I thought was really cool about it is
Mark Cuban quit.
whatever. What I find really cool about it, Ron Mexico, is that it found something in my warehouse. It found that at night from 9 to 1 a.m., 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., I have a spike of organic particulates in my warehouse. We don't know why. Nobody knows. Nobody's here. Nobody knows what's happening. But there is, for some reason, every single night, a spike of particulates in my warehouse that's empty, other than like parts and pieces. And nobody knows why. The best we can guess is that I have, refrigerants in there, and I have like, dead compressors with oil still in them. And I have like all kinds of stuff that maybe, when it hits a certain temperature, it releases into the air. Nobody really knows. We're trying to figure it out. But I got this filter 2 weeks ago, and it told me that that's going on in my warehouse. So
Got a
pretty awesome.
pharmaceutical company next door?
Yeah.
Is it organic?
What was that?
Is it organic?
Yeah. So, okay. So first, let's say this. This building was a grow, and it's got 3 separate buildings that are the same. It was a marijuana grow. They moved out over a year ago, and it sat empty the entire time. And next door was the only place that they were, and they moved out 3 months ago. So we've been the only ones in this building for 3 months. So it's insane. And in my other areas, so I have, this place is gigantic. Someday I'll show it to you guys. Some of you have seen it on my TikTok and stuff. So I have 2 offices in the front, another office in the middle, then my warehouse. And then next to my warehouse, the exact same size as the warehouse, I have a school, a kid's school. None of the other rooms have this problem. I have Atmo tubes in every room. Atmo tube, I'll show you guys that too. Air quality monitors. And I have them in every room, and none of them spike. It's only
It sounds like a fungus.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's got to be like some mold particulate from like when the grow was here, something like. But why only from 9 to 12?
That's
It's
when
crazy.
they're
It's gotta
active,
be a temperature thing.
when that specific strain is active and sporing.
Yes, I agree. It's got to be something like that. Hold on, I want to show you guys this too.
It's the mirror dimension.
Okay. So every tech should have one of these. This is, it doesn't have to be Atmo. It doesn't matter what brand, but this is an IAQ monitor that I take with me everywhere. It stays in my tool bag. There's actually a little clip on my Wiesmann that I got at, I think I got it at the awards that fits perfectly on this. But this tells me by color. It also hooks to an app, but it tells me by color, like what's going on in the room that I'm in. So if I go in to do an air quality test, or I go in to do an airflow test specifically, I always check the air quality too. And that's because if they've had a clogged filter for a long time, there could very well be some nasty things going on in their air quality. So yeah, this one's Atmo tube. I have no idea why I chose. I didn't even choose this, actually. They sent it to me for free. So any brands will do. They're all roughly the same, but it's very, very important to have an IAQ monitor. Some people like to hold them on the plane, which is really gross, and I won't do it because I just don't want to know.
So what type of...
Does anybody have any questions about the filter?
Yeah,
go ahead.
filter, is that I mean, what type of quality does it have for the,
Yeah, so it's MERV 13. You guys will learn in SkillCat. Sorry, guys, I have a lag. So you guys will learn in SkillCat all about filters and what MERV, ratings are, and what ASHRAE expects us to have for filters, things like that. This one is a MERV 13. It is a pleated filter. It's a little bit different than like a typical filter. It's like a little bit different, but it's not any more restrictive. I have the pressure drops that I'll post in the SkillCat page actually after this, so you guys can see. For those of you who are a little bit more advanced and who care about such things like I do. But yeah, it's MERV 13 and it's not restrictive. The only thing I don't like about it is that it's a 1-inch. I am awaiting the day where they make 2 to 4-inch filters, because I just think that'll be much better. But in this case, it's not really about the filter for me so much as it is about the IAQ monitoring. And if they can get this right, if they can get, every size filter and get it right, it will really change everything. It tells the homeowner when the filter is dirty. It tells them when to change it, you know, and it tells them when to call us, right? We can get work out of this. They, you know, see something crazy with their air quality like I did for a couple of days, and they're like, ooh, I got to call an HVAC tech. Well, that's you who sold it to them, right? So there's lots of reasons that I like it. But does anybody have any questions about filters in general, about the airflow side of it? Because we have a few more minutes. We were only supposed to go over the cycle, but you guys are all really receptive and you guys all get it. So I'm not going to, you know, beat a dead horse with my baby hand. So does anybody have any questions about airflow?
What's static pressure drop again? Oops.
Static pressure. I'm not supposed to teach about this at all right now. So what I will do is I will give you the definition of static pressure.
He's gonna I have a question, Jennifer.
Because as far
to pass it on to the other students.
As far as airflow, I know that when you're screwing in the plenum and so forth, that every screw accounts for 1 CFM decrease of airflow. So what is the correct calculation there as far as installation is concerned?
The correct calculation for what? For design?
Yeah, for design.
Like if you're doing
because
the calculation in order to find out how much CFM you need?
Yeah, for each sheet metal screw, it's approximately 1 decrease in 1 CFM airflow. So I'm just wondering, what's the precise measurement of numeration there as far as your screws are concerned and so forth?
Yeah, so there is one. I'm not supposed to teach you guys that yet either, but what I will say is this. So what I do is not, I design ductwork. That's what I do. When I am doing the calculation for ductwork sizing, I don't actually account for every screw. What I do is I get my total CFM that I need, and then I add or remove based on if I have a super long run, I have more screws, right? So I'm going to add a little bit more or pull a little bit more away, and that's done in manual. That's a little bit more advanced on the airflow side, but that is a killer question because anybody who's looking to design needs to know that for sure. Jason, that's awesome that you know it.
So flex duct is the way to go because there's no screws.
Absolutely not true. Please don't listen to Ron Mexico. Guys, I'm going to ban Ron Mexico from coming next time because Ron Mexico is a bad influence. No, so flex duct. Actually, the patent for flex duct says that we are not to use, and this is a very old patent, of course, but it says, the guy who literally made it said that we are not to use more than 5 feet to the register. So we are not supposed to have these long octopus flex runs that we see in all these systems. When you do come up to a system, and I'll tell you this for my newer techs, when you come up to a system and you see a bunch of octopus arms coming off of it that are all flex and it looks like a bunch of hula hoops stacked together and it's all crazy, look at that before you look at anything else, because 9 times out of 10, there's a zip tie that's holding it up and is squeezing that flex and you're not getting airflow through there, or it's happening in a bunch of different places. A lot of the time, they don't even use hangers on it. So they're just draping it over the eaves in the attic, or they're, stuffing it underneath like I don't even know. So I've seen them stuffed underneath like tables and stuff, like using the table to hold it up. It's crazy. So if you ever walk up to a system that you're trying to diagnose for a no heat call, especially or no cool call, but it happens a lot in heating season because people call more, right? But if you're ever walking up to a system, you see that, look for airflow restrictions in the flex, because 9 times out of 10, there's either a wide hole in it that an animal of some sort has torn through and destroyed, and they're just heating their attic, or it's a restriction caused by the flex. Thank you for bringing up flex, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, thank you.
All right, we have a couple more minutes. Any about anything HVAC related?
I got a question.
No croc questions?
Crocs are on hold for now. Go ahead, Ronald.
To the EPA licenses, the cars that we got, do you have to get those renewed every 2 years, anything like that?
No. So those are actually lifetime. As of right now, I mean, there's nothing saying that, there's nothing saying that the EPA can't change that or that legislature won't change that someday. But for right now, it's one and done. Like Angelica says, it's, you get it and it's lifetime. Now in your state, that's not to say that your state doesn't have other licenses that you need to be an HVAC tech there. So I am in an anomaly state is what it's called. And in an anomaly state, there is no state law as to what you need to be an HVAC contractor. So the
Or
only
state
thing that my
code.
state requires is an EPA license, which absolutely scares the crap out of me, because you guys know how easy it was to get that EPA, right? As if you're dedicated, you're determined, you can get it. That doesn't necessarily mean you can do anything with HVAC right off the bat, right when you get it, right? So a lot of states will require
That's when you get your name.
licensing. Yeah, exactly. So you can, like Florida has an HVAC master's license and a contractor's license. Texas is another one that does. There's lots of states that have, other licenses in place to make it so that you're not just being an HVAC tech with that being your only credential. However, I will say it saved me, little old me, knew nothing about HVAC, but because I had an EPA license, some guy decided to hire me on a whim, and I ended up being an incredible tech. So, I mean, it depends. It's all based on how much you're willing to learn. But no, there is no renewal for EPA. And on top of there not being a renewal, there are no other federal mandates that you need either. So, and also you guys who haven't seen it, I know that I'm going to get something out of Ron Mexico over this one. But we do offer NATE as well. We offer the NATE Ready to Work exam. And that is not a necessary certificate.
NATE
but
is
it
about
is
as
helpful
important
with
as an
employers.
EPA
So
license.
if you're a woman, and I'm going to say, there's Ron
May
Mexico for
I
you.
add one thing, Jennifer?
Absolutely.
Like you have an apprentice, a journeyman, and a master. So does NATE as far as higher excellence awards are concerned. And not just your core, we're talking about specialty programs into the trade. And if you're taking the formerly, live in person, I mean, you really have to know your stuff to pass these exams. From electronics to motors on downs, you really have to know your stuff inside and out, because it is not easy.
No, and it's proctored. And there's not a lot of study material that's out there for these specialty tests. So NATE, I will say, is always better if you are in a specialty, but you have to start somewhere with NATE. And every single HVAC tech can start with the Ready to Work. The Ready to Work actually gives you a safety, it gives you the same thing. It gives you a certification that you are NATE Ready to Work certified. And that tells, the employer that you've done these safety courses that NATE offers. It is mostly based on safety, and it's, comparable to the OSHA 10. It's not going to make or break you, but when it comes to an employer, if you are one of the, divergents like Cece and Angelica and Jennifer and I, if you're one of the divergents that is a female in the field and you have to get as many credentials as possible, or even if you just want to, you could be a man and just want to have a portfolio, there's no reason not to. It's free. So, just take the NATE course. I will help you. Send me an email, jennifer@skillcatapp.com. I will help you. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. I would say anybody who's gotten the EPA and isn't really sure where to go next, you can either sign up on hvhx.com to take one of my lessons, or you can just go through SkillCat, and do, random courses if you want to, or you can keep coming to these and do the courses that are provided there. I suggest all of you do that, of course, but I'm a little partial. And then the other thing you can do is start the NATE Ready to Work course already and just get your credentials up. Even if you're not ready to go into the field, you can still get this. Like when I walked into my first ever boss's office, I walked in with a portfolio like this, and I just slapped it on his desk. And he was like, "What is this? None of these guys have this. I've never seen one of these in my life." And he's flipping through and he's like, "What? Why? Like, why did you do all this?" I even had like an advanced diploma in solar energy and natural gas and all these crazy, any free course I could find online, I had it. And he's like, "You might as well just go to college. Like, what's wrong with you?" But I got the job, and I got the job not because he looked at every one of those certificates and said, "She needs this to work for me," but because I showed the initiative that I was willing to work as hard as humanly possible to get a job there. So sometimes it's only about the initiative, and SkillCat is huge for showing initiative. You get a certificate after every course.
And you didn't come out with a massive amount of college debt.
Yeah, I didn't. I actually did go to college. I went to MIT and got my mechanical engineering degree, but I went on a mother's grant that they had. I had to maintain a 3.9 GPA to stay for free. It was crazy. But I will say it was worth it. I do not suggest that for anybody who wants to just be an HVAC. That was a stupid decision on my part, and I don't suggest anybody else go that route. All right, does anybody have any other questions?
No, but I just want to thank you, Jenna, for all of your love and support, and I appreciate you for everything that you did for me. I know you went out on a limb for me, and whatever happens. I appreciate you. I had to do what I had to do, and I just want to thank you again.
Of course,
I
Jennifer.
think that
Appreciate it.
you're going to be pleasantly surprised.
It's coming over tomorrow.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, what did I miss? You're welcome.
Thanks, Jennifer.
You guys are all welcome. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. I hope you guys come back. Even if
2 weeks.
even if we don't end up doing full courses, like it's been awesome to sit here and talk to you guys.
Well, I'll be back. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. All right. I'll see you guys
Have a
in
nice
2 weeks.
one.
Okay. Be here.
2
Be
weeks,
square.
please. All right.
Bye.
Send me the email. Bye.